Because of Christmas and then they swear it's nothing, you know. It's nothing, but it's nothing like it. You know, so then I got on again. I found determined how much it was. Second time it went through, and okay, you know by Richard Physics clinic there? He was trained. And it's right there, Miss Ray. You see the sign, you phone the number there when you get there. They bring it out, put it in their vehicle for you. Give me a credit card. There's no, no. They want my credit card now. It's all registered. There's no being automatic. Money or credit card, they just give you the bill and
did I steal your seat? I'm really good at timing. Well, it was Jody who told me Mike was looking for a timer and I was like, oh, it's for down. So I Facebook messaged him like, I heard you need a timer. He's like, and like I can actually go get like timing lights and Toastmasters from here, but they're really tiny. So I think this will be better. Could have brought an iPad, I guess.
well, they'll have more storage.
You're coming previous volunteer.
But you
Really? Okay. And John is but next this time the table was not. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. It's our outing. Yes. Okay.
Blackman's, yeah. I took you there and I bought a beautiful big chicken there. And I brought it home and everything went grand. I made the whole dinner. Because I went to get a turkey and they didn't have a turkey. So I thought, yeah, it was big chicken and it turned out awesome. Yeah, it's 8 pounds. It's a big chicken. He got the message. We used to squeeze. So what are you keeping busy with? And they never do. Like if you connect with they probably clean it up and tell me you have a battery pack machine. What is yeah. It wouldn't connect when you see that, it's time for change. The big one. But you do a lot of freezing. Where do you keep it in your house?
She went to find the child.
Well, this is still, it's not backwards. It's not backwards. No, he thinks it's backwards, but it's just that sign that's backwards. Like, come look at this. So, like, you can see the stage, but it shows the print backwards. You know what I mean? I don't think she can fix that. Like, it's showing that and not that, but it's reversing that sign.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't know if it would be different if she turned it the other way. No. Oh, yeah, because it would take a... Yeah, she needs to turn it. Can you hold
Except for
this?
the camera is less. Oh no, she doesn't need to turn it. Yeah, it's better quality if you do it the other way.
Where did she go? It's just like on. So people are getting... There we go. Hey, sorry everyone. Okay, we're almost ready.
Okay.
Yep.
Give me a thumbs up, I'll start talking.
You want me to pass this?
Oh.
It's this.
Right away. As soon as you like me, happens.
One.
So people that aren't here, you're correct. I'm really sorry. You're not I know I'm not very good at it. So those are
He knows how they did the rig. Remember what we did?
You need help?
Why when you in the restaurant?
Done.
Which days come up? So what you do? Still black.
Okay, go for it, Mike. Oops, sorry.
On the side of the put them in their wrap way, and then
So, well, good evening, everyone. Sorry for those who are getting a little bit hungry up front. Just a little, Grande Prairie is a little bit late here. I wanted to make sure everyone was able to make it here. And thank you very much for coming and showing your interest in the future of the Progressive Conservative Party. I'd like to thank Wade Drysdale for making it out today as well. Appreciate Wade coming in here. And despite the efforts made to make this go over as swimmingly as possible, pretty sure we wouldn't have been able to get this up and running without the efforts of Jackie Clayton. Jackie, thank you so much for everything you did. I'm your MC and one of the four moderators to help for this evening. My name is Mike Moment, but I would like to introduce someone a little bit more important, Marcel Van Heck, if he could come up to the stage to do a little bit of an introduction and also introduce the candidates we have.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks to Grande Prairie Wapiti and Grande Prairie Smoky PC associations for hosting tonight's event. It's great to see so many people involved in our kind of weird politics we got going on. Not only is it a wonderful opportunity to hear from our three leadership candidates, but it is also a fundraiser for these two constituencies. So everybody please be generous. Money is what makes this whole operation run. I'm sorry to tell you, you probably don't know about that. Nobody's ever asked you for a donation. A couple of housekeeping announcements. All questions must be written out and handed in. There will be no verbal questions. They will all be written questions. Thank you. I would would like to publicly recognize our last PC president, Terry Beaupre. Terry was our president during the May 5th election, and because of her selfless hard work and other PC volunteers that are able to even have this event tonight. And I have to attest to how hard Terry worked and all of the things that went on. You got to remember that neither Terry nor I even spoke to Jim Prentice after the election. And we were left with a party that had huge expenses, roughly $270,000 a month, and we had no money coming in, and a huge debt. Today that debt is only at $0.7 million. I know that sounds like, I don't try to minimize it, but I think it's a huge token to Terry's efforts and what she was able to accomplish in her time as president. Terry, thank you for being there for the party in its darkest hour. We are lucky to have you on the team. Please give Terry a standing applause. To you, the members, please get involved in this leadership race. Whether you donate, whether you're a delegate, whether you attend a delegate selection meeting, we need your help. Without your opinions, without your help, we cannot accomplish what we need to, and that's try and win the trust back of Albertans in the next election. The leadership election will be a closed delegate convention, and I say closed because only delegates who are registered will be able to vote. Anybody can come and act as an observer. You can pay to be an observer in this event. It'll be quite an event. So we'll expect to see you there. Again, thank you for coming tonight. Thanks to our candidates for participating in Grande Prairie Townhall, which is being live streamed on the party's Facebook page. I'd like to first introduce our first candidate, Byron Nelson. Byron Nelson from Calgary. Our next candidate is Jason Kenny. Jason Kenny is also from Calgary. They come a long ways to get here to Grande Prairie. And our last candidate on the stage is Richard Starkey from... Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, Marcel. And first thing I would like to do at this point is introduce to you our moderator, Helen Rice, to introduce the rules.
So the order of speaking has been determined by a draw that was done earlier this evening. Question cards will be placed around the room and gathered by volunteers. Questions must be respectful to every candidate. They will be screened by a volunteer prior to being read to the candidates. Opening remarks will be 3 minutes per candidate. I have 6 pre-selected questions, and each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes to answer each question. All right, so now we'll try another one. And the 6 pre-selected questions. Each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes to answer each question that's based on the pre-selected speaking order. After all candidates have answered one of my 6 questions, each candidate may respond to another candidate with a 30-second rebuttal. After all the moderator questions have been asked, the floor will open up to audience questions for the remaining question period. The question will be read to the candidate, and you can address your question to any particular candidate. If it is not addressed to any particular candidate, I will choose one. Only one candidate will answer each question with no rebuttals from the other candidates. At the end of that time, I guess for some fun, there will be what's called a lightning round. Candidates will be asked a yes or no question. They'll be asked it simultaneously. They'll have cards that they hold up with yes or no. And at the end of that, then each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements. Now, when we get to the lightning round, I want you to know I did not make up these questions. So if some of them seem strange, for the timing, Chris, do you want to stand up? Chris will hold up her phone with an orange screen when you have 30 seconds left. Then she will flip the screen to red when your time is up. You must stop at that point. If you don't, I will interrupt you and it'll be embarrassing to us both. So please don't do that. So, without further ado, I guess we get on to the questions. So, our first speaker by order of draw will be Jason Kenny. Jason, here is your question.
Is it an opening statement or question?
Oh, opening. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted, to give you a bit of extra time to think about the question. So please, okay, let's do it again since I messed them up. Please welcome Jason Kenny.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good evening, Grande Prairie. It's so great to be here with Richard and Byron. Let me also acknowledge and thank for his service our hard-working MLA, Wayne Drysdale. Wayne, thanks for holding the MVP to account, sir. And I'm looking forward to a great and civil exchange about the future of our magnificent province. But I have to note, this is the first one of these debates we've had with an open bar. So I hope we all reserve till afterwards. We'll have a good time afterwards. Friends, this province is a magnificent place. Alberta has been good to all of us, whether we are fifth-generation Albertans or First Nations Albertans or Albertans by choice, new Canadians in this province. All of us have benefited from the prosperity of a province that isn't just a place on a map. It is an idea of a place where hard work is rewarded and encouraged, where success is encouraged and not punished. A place where we believe in the creative power of free enterprise and a free economy, in personal and fiscal responsibility, in taking care of those who can't take care of themselves, in a compassionate society, because we understand that you can't redistribute wealth unless you create it in the first place, right? Something that this socialist government does not understand. An ideological socialist government that is putting at jeopardy that idea of Alberta, the beating heart of free enterprise in Canada. So I'm here to say we cannot afford to take the risk of a second NDP term, a government that is throwing gasoline on the fire of one of the worst recessions in our history, with massive tax increases, regulations, $1 billion in new debt every month, investor uncertainty. Now they're planning behind closed doors a radical change to our school curriculum to turn students into, quotes, effective agents of change. They don't have a mandate to do that any more than they did to impose their carbon tax. That's why I'm proposing that Alberta Conservatives unite, that we reconstitute the coalition of Peter Lougheed and Ralph Klein that gave this province good government for 4 decades by burying the hatchet after a decade of division between two parties that are voting together in the legislature 90% of the time. 80% of grassroots PCs and Wild Rosers indicate in recent polls that they want us to bury the hatchet. They want us to look to the future and not the past, to focus on what unites us and not what divides us. Because if we go into that next election divided, it's entirely possible the NDP could end up with a second disastrous term because of vote splitting that would forever, irreparably change the idea of Alberta. So I am here to propose that you decide the future of our province in a grassroots referendum. We've had too much top-down, leader-driven, arrogant styles of leadership in our province and party. We need humility and servant leadership that invests the decision about unity, about the future in your hands. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, please welcome Byron Nelson.
Leadership elections are about principles. The most important, most vital principle of the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta is an open party accessible to all. And our party has come to a fork in the road. Don't be fooled, the choice is whether we continue as a party or whether we destroy our party. Whether we want to be a member of members of the Progressive Conservative Association of Alberta, or whether we want to join what we found out is Wild Rose version 2.0. Thursday night, Brian Jean indicated his thoughts very clearly, that the only conservatism unity, or unity for conservatives in Alberta, was for us to exist under the Wild Rose Party, by their bylaws, their constitution, and their principles. Now that plan, my friends, is not a merger of equals, but is a takeover. You, the members, have told us for 40 plus years that the PC guiding principles are what's responsible for our success. Yes, we have made some big mistakes over the years, but the goal of a political party is to learn and grow and to develop such that it meets the needs of its members in the province. Now, my friend Jason is saying he's going to do a magical trick, would like to bring conservatives together, but like all magic tricks, this one doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's certainly an easy soundbite, but it won't work under our election laws, and I think we're going to talk about that. And it just yesterday got torpedoed by his old Ottawa pal, Brian Jean. Now, I want to be a leader of a party that believes in the successes of Alberta and of Albertans. I want to lead a party that picks itself up, shakes off the dirt and nastiness, and gets back to governing according to the principles that make Alberta the land of opportunity. And I urge you all to take a close, thoughtful look at what my fellow candidates and friends are suggesting. One is promoting the dissolution of our history and successes, and another is supporting an idea that, well, okay, isn't fully developed. But Albertans want a party that has their interest at heart. They're tired of incoherence, instability, and exploitation. They loathe corruption, cronyism, and backroom deals. They want a leader that can bring the PC party back into the positive spotlight and win the next provincial election. And I, Byron Nelson, am that leader. As a long-standing progressive conservative, I believe in the guiding principles of our party. I believe in the many years of hard work and commitment that each and every one of us has given to this party. I believe in the principles that brought my family here and has kept us here for 6 generations, and I refuse to believe that we need to be absorbed into Wild Rose version 2.0, or that we need to duct tape 2 broken parties together, because that's not in Alberta's best interest and won't form the basis to defeat the NDP in 2019. I believe there's a home for everyone, and my home is the PC party, and if you vote for me as your leader, I will do everything I can to make sure that our home is safe and secure and that the door is always open. Thank you.
Next, please welcome Richard Starkey.
Well, thank you, Helen, to everyone here in Grande Prairie tonight. Good evening. In 50 days, we will gather in Calgary to choose our next leader. But the question is, will that be our last leader? It's a question only you can answer. Now, I've been traveling Alberta since the election, and I've been listening to members, and I have heard a number of things. First, I've heard that our party isn't dead. It's battered, it's bruised perhaps, but members are proud of the legacy of our party, and they told me it is worth fighting for. Second, they told me they want to re-energize our party, to dedicate ourselves to the principles of Peter Lougheed. And last May in Red Deer, we reaffirmed by an overwhelming majority the desire to work together to rebuild our province for the betterment of Albertans. But now, as we all know, the question has changed. Even though party members had made a decision and a dedicated group of volunteers had committed to the hard work of rebuilding our party, we find ourselves being asked a question that PC members have already answered. Now, from the outset, many viewed the 5-point unity plan as a thinly veiled scheme to take over our party, to destroy it and then deliver the remnants to the wild rose. Oh no, we were told. There would be 5 steps. It would be simple. It would be a walk in the park. Now, I, among others, pointed out the obvious flaws. Mergers are against Alberta law. The process would take too long, and Rachel Notley could call a snap election. And then yesterday, Brian Jean agreed with me. Well, no, he didn't agree with everything, but mind you, he said that he agreed that the risky 5-point unity scheme wouldn't work. And so he came up with his own plan. Given that he gets the right dancing partner, well, first you fold the PC party, you combine it with the Wild Rose under their constitution, under their principles, under their bylaws, and oh, they'll let us use our name, or at least half of it. Well, Mr. Kenny wholeheartedly agreed, and we welcomed the news. So now we know. The 5-point unity plan is really a power play. There was never any intention of going through those unnecessary steps. The intent all along was to bring the Progressive Conservative Party down and to present Wild Rose with the smoldering ruins. And it might just work. But then again, it might not. To my fellow Progressive Conservatives, it's your call to action, because this leadership continues to be a battle for the hearts and minds and the very existence of our party. It wasn't clear before, but yesterday's events certainly make it into sharp focus. Mr. Jean has made it tremendously clear. The question, Mr. Kenny, you must answer tonight is, why are you in this race? I call on you to reject the politics of fear. I call on you to reject intimidation and personal interest. And to those of you who want to see a centrist, socially progressive, fiscally conservative voice in Alberta, I call on you to attend your DSMs and vote for candidates who support a rebuild of a progressive conservative party. I'm Richard Starkey, and I'm running for leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll begin the 6 questions. I remind each of the candidates you have 2 minutes to answer the question. Same rules. Chris will hold the orange screen up when you have 30 seconds left. The first candidate to answer the questions will be Jason Kenny, and the first question is, each of the 3 will answer the same question. Do you want to be leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and why?
I want to be leader of the I want to be leader of the Progressive Conservative Party so that we can get Alberta back on track and renew the Alberta Advantage, so we can avoid the catastrophic risk of a second NDP term. Because I believe that Alberta is more important than any label or any brand or any set of resentments or egos. Because I believe that it's time for us to look to the future and not the past. You know, the Wild Rose members were overwhelmingly once members and supporters of the Progressive Conservative Party before that coalition divided right in half 10 years ago. And Albertans are looking to us to put it back together. Not a few hundred party activists, but tens of thousands of grassroots members who should have the final say on this. And so I'm seeking this leadership because I believe that too many party insiders were speaking to each other and not the grassroots, not ordinary Albertans, not the kind of people who go to political conventions, but people who just work hard, raise their families, and can't understand why we would run the risk of a second NDP term. So what I'm seeking is a coming together of equals, not just of the Wildrose and PC parties, but of the 400,000 people that voted for the Federal Conservative Party last October, for Chris Workington and Arnold Viersen up here in northwestern Alberta, who didn't even show up for the provincial election last May. Why didn't they come out? Why isn't anybody asking that question? They didn't come out because they became disenchanted with the decade of division. They want a new beginning and a fresh start. It's not destruction. It is a new beginning, just like the Conservative Party of Canada was when we brought together the Progressive Conservative Party and the Reform Canadian Alliance as a merger of equal that went on to win 3 national elections. We did it nationally. We can do it here in Alberta. It's time for us to dig deep and to give people a sense of hope. This is not about protecting the past, it's about securing our future. Thank you very much.
Byron Nelson, I will repeat the question. Do you want to be leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and why?
I tell a story when I go around to different places of, I know especially Richard is going to get tired of hearing because I talk about it so much and we go to so many places together. And that's that in May of 1965, my parents got married and my dad had graduated that weekend from an institution called Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, SAIT, with an electronics diploma. That was 30 years into a small C conservative government, and everybody in my dad's class at SAIT had to leave Alberta to find work. There was nothing for anybody in Alberta. My parents went to Ontario to find their way, and thank goodness, after coming back, circling through British Columbia, we had a PC government elected in 1971, and I give that entire credit for the fact that my family, I'm a 5th generation Albertan, my family could return to Alberta under a PC government. We have the best ideas, the best goals. I worry, though, right now, about the future of this province because I have kids that are 13 and 10. I was able to make my fortune, such as it is, but pursue my fortune perhaps in Alberta, and I want my kids to be able to do that. I don't want my kids to have to leave this province as my parents did. But that's the future of this province without a strong progressive conservative party. Now we could talk unity, there's no question. I think it's not an inappropriate discussion to have over the time of the PC party. But I assure you, and I will talk about this in the next question, that if we go down right now a merger path between March of 2017 and whenever the Premier and her comrades decide to call the next election, we are doing her the biggest favor of re-election. We'll talk about that, but I want to be here because a PC party has delivered Alberta's strongest 44 years in history. My kids are 6th generation Albertans, and we know it in my family. I want to continue that. Do it for Alberta. Thanks.
Next, we have Richard Starkey.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the fundamental question. Why do you want to be the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party? And you know, it's interesting. You know, Jason said he wants to be the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party and then went on and talked about a lot of noble goals and ideals. And you know, I agree with basically almost all of them. We have noble goals and ideals. Make Alberta a better place. Look to the future. Create a vision. Create something for all Albertans. And that's what I heard as well. But you know what? Where we differ is how we get there. Now, Byron talked about it, Jason talked about it, and I believe that our best route forward is to have a political party, to lead a political party that reflects on the values of Albertans, on the principles of Albertans, and those have been progressive conservative values. Now, Jason talked about a merger of equals. My friends, if we merge, which isn't even allowed, but if we tried to merge at this stage again, this would not be a merger of equals. Trust me. This would be a takeover. Brian Jean has laid out the parameters already. Their constitution, their values, their ways of doing things. And ladies and gentlemen, the Progressive Conservative Party is worth preserving. You know, the other thing I'll say is that it was criticized, you know, that we didn't listen to the grassroots. Well, I'd really like to know, Mr. Kenny, how many of those constituency engagement sessions did you attend? I attended dozens of them. There were over 2,000 members and new members. There wasn't a single meeting that we didn't have new PC members there that had never attended a PC event before. So this wasn't some elitist group. This wasn't some selected group. This was everybody. And those doors were open to all Albertans. I want to lead the Progressive Conservative Party because the Progressive Conservative Party has been very good to Alberta. We need to get the NDP out of office, and we need to do it after only one term. I see them every day. Trust me, nobody wants these folks gone worse than me.
Thank you. Now, do any of the candidates wish to provide a 30-second rebuttal? Mr. Kenny making his way to the podium.
Okay. I respect those who have concerns or anxieties about change, about future about unity rather than division. But as to Richard's point, I admire the 2,000 people who showed up at engagement sessions. But there were over 200,000 members of this party when Ralph Klein and Ed Stelmach were elected leader. When we started this campaign, we were down to a few thousand. 410,000 PC voters didn't come out to those meetings. The 1.2 million federal conservative voters didn't come out to those meetings. And nor did the 4.2 million Albertans. We need to hear from all of them. It's about grassroots and not insider democracy.
Just as, hopefully we talk about this a lot going forward, but just as we do, understand that both the PCs and the Wild Rose lost a ton of votes last time. It's not that we split the vote to each other. We'll talk about that going forward, but understand what the numbers are. The PC party didn't split votes with the Wild Rose. We lost the faith and trust of Albertans, and that's what we have to do, is fight to win them back.
Well, Helen, I just have to say that I reject the characterization that the 2,000 people that showed up at those meetings aren't important. I reject the characterizations that they're not reflective of Albertans, because that was the process we put in place to gather the information from Albertans to give us a pathway going forward, and it was critically important. And that is the process within a political party. That is what we did at the AGM. That decision was reaffirmed by an overwhelming majority. And now, Mr. Kenny is trying to reverse that decision. That is not democracy.
Thank you. First, everyone in the audience, remember, if you have questions, write it down. And Mike Squared, stand up. The two mics will wander around to get your questions. So if you have questions, please just hold up your hand and they'll come and get them. For a second question, we'll begin with Byron Nelson, and the question is, what is your vision for the future of the Progressive Conservative Party, and how would you reunite Progressive Conservatives around a centrist right party?
Okay, assuming that's what we want to do, I think what we want to do is regrow and bring back the PC party base to the numbers that what Jason has talked about. If you go to my website, which is www.byronforalberta.ca, it lays out my two visions for the party, but understand that this party lost track of its own members leading up to 2015, and we lost track of our connection with the average Albertan. That's how we rebuild it. Not by going down a route which I'll describe right now, because and again, I'm not offended by the idea that in this party that I've been a member of and a volunteer of for 25 years, ever talks about its future. I think that's okay, but what we have to remember is our common goal is to make sure that the NDP do not get a second majority. So if we decide that we want to go to a merger, let's pretend that the Wild Rose didn't just say what they did, that they're willing to merge as equals, which they're not. They're willing to come in Wild Rose version 2.0, but let's pretend that we can merge as equals. Elections Alberta doesn't allow a merger, so we have to do a different thing, and that's to both shut down and create a third party, right? So I'm trying to be positive as how you'd go down this process. When we created the PC party in our Constitution, we didn't contemplate the end of the PC party. The Constitution right now doesn't contemplate the end of the party, so what we then have to do, and excuse me for being the one lawyer in the crowd here, it's a good thing to say, I suppose. What we have to do is amend our Constitution, which the next chance that we have to do that is November's AGM. It's already been booked by the Board of Directors. The leader, the position that we're all running for, doesn't have ultimate power to do anything. The board, in our Constitution, it's available on the website for anyone to read, has the ultimate power to do that. It's the first time, Brian Jean said he's going to step down in the summer, the first time we can even talk about whether we want to amend the Constitution in order to vote on the future of a merger is November, and then whatever vote we decide will go on after that point. And then the new party, we're going to eventually lose our money, because when you shut down a party, it goes to the NDP. In this case, eventually we're going to have nomination, form a new party, nominate, go down that road. Can't happen. We're going to re-elect the NDP if we try, unfortunately.
I would suggest give Byron another round of applause because he missed us when he approached the podium. Keep everything even and fair, So our next speaker, Richard Starkey.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we talk a lot about building a big tent party and having a party that appeals to voters who are both socially progressive and fiscally conservative. But, there's one key thing, and I used to be parks minister, and I do a lot of camping. The thing about a big tent is where you put the center pole is real important. And if you put it on rocky ground, that's not a good thing. And so in our party, we have to understand the factors that were the reasons for why people left us. From 2008, 2012, many people left us to go to the right and join the Wild Rose. And yes, while there are many former PC members there are also many, many members of Wild Rose who were never involved in the political process. That, saying that they're all former PCs, that, my friends, is a myth. The second part is understand why they left. In the case of a lot of Wild Rose members, and I have a lot of them in my constituency, they left because of anger over our behavior. They left because of anger over our lack of fiscal discipline. And they left because, in rural Alberta at least, and you would know this, they left because of anger over the property rights issue, something we have to address as a party to win back those votes. On the left, we have to understand, why did people go that direction? Well, in the last election, they didn't just leave us to go to the NDP, they also left the Wild Rose to go to the NDP. Our vote went down 150,000, the Wild Rose vote went down 80,000. The NDP vote went out by 477,000 votes. We have to understand those changes. We have to understand the demographics, and we also have to understand that we're undergoing boundary redistribution, which will most likely put more ridings and more seats into the urban areas and less into the rural areas. Those are all things that have to be understood. I believe that a progressive conservative party that appeals to both urban and rural voters will be the best choice for Alberta, and that's how I intend to unify our party and unify conservatives under a progressive conservative banner.
Thank you. Jason Kenney. Applause. Now remember, you'll have to do it.
No, we don't need applause. So, what we could use is a mic that we could just pass along the table, but...
No, I like you to get up.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. I can certainly use the exercise. Friends, you know what? Last May of 2015, 800,000 people voted for the PC and Wild Rose parties combined. If they were together, they would have won 60 of the 87 seats in the legislature, and we would not be living through this socialist experiment. 5 months later, the Federal Conservative Party won 1.2 million votes, 60% of the vote in Alberta, 29 of 34 seats, including almost all of the seats in urban Alberta. So we have, and that, by the way, that Federal Conservative Party came together as the result of the kind of unity process that I am advocating. That culminated in ratification by over 90% of the grassroots members. It wasn't easy. There were voices of concern and caution, like those of Richard and Byron and some of yours. But you know, we had two great leaders, Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper, who understood that if we didn't reunite the family, if we didn't reconstitute the National Conservative Coalition, that we were going to end up with permanent Liberal governments. They were right. The 90% of grassroots were right. And we have 400,000 more Conservative voters showing up federally for the Federal Conservative Merged Party than provincially. This is not about a takeover, it's about taking back our party that's split in two. I'm proud up here in northwestern Alberta to have the endorsement of people like Marv Moore, elected with Peter Lougheed in 1972, and Ralph Klein's provincial campaign chair. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Walter Peskowski and Everett McDonald and so many others who built the PC party, who understand that the family was divided and it's time to reconstitute it. I don't think Marv Moore or Walter Peskowski or Everett McDonald or any of the other dozens of former MLAs who have endorsed my unity plan want to give up the PC party. They want to recreate it. They want to reconstitute the coalition they had before it divided. They want to focus on the future and not the past.
Byron, you wish to give a rebuttal?
Usually it's Liberals and NDPs in this province that you hear claiming if they push their parties together, the exact same people that voted for the parties individually would vote for the whole. We know that in politics to be a fallacy. It's not the case. But I can tell you what I talked about there not being any vote splitting, and I'm in Calgary last year. People voted for or against the PCs. There was not vote splitting, certainly in Calgary, I can tell you that. And I can tell you because I went to the door every darn day in that election. People that didn't want to vote for the PCs who were mad at us, and there were a lot, had to fight whether to vote NDP or Wild Rose. It wasn't vote splitting.
Thank you. Richard.
Well, thank you, Helen. Throughout this discussion and this debate, many times Mr. Kenney brings up the federal election of October 2015, which happened 5 months after our provincial election. And there's the problem. What happened in October 2015 was influenced by what happened in May of 2015. Remember that. If there was a provincial election on May 6th of 2015, the results would have been very different. So you can't just say, oh, well, what happened in May 2015 and October 2015, that they're two isolated and unrelated events.
Thank you, Richard.
They are directly related.
Thank you, Richard. All right, now for our third question. I'm sorry, Jason,
All right.
go ahead.
I'm easily forgettable. It's okay. So, you know, friends, first of all, as to Byron's point, every single NDP seat that they won in Calgary, they won by less than the total Wild Rose plus PC vote. So there was vote splitting that elected their government. And in terms of the federal election, actually, the last result was our worst result in a decade. Since we came together in the federal merger in 2003, we have won on average 65% of the popular vote and 26 of 28 seats in Alberta. That is the natural coalition for Conservatives. Let's recreate it provincially.
Thank you. Okay, for our third question, Richard Starkey will begin the answers. And the question is, how do you feel the volunteer Progressive Conservative Association of Alberta Board of Directors has done since May 5th, 2015? And how do you see the Board of Directors working together with the leader and caucus if you are leader?
Well, Helen, I will tell you that if it wasn't for the volunteer board of directors and all the other people that volunteered for our party after May 5th, 2015, this party would not be alive today. And it was previously pointed out that the efforts of Terry Beaupre after election night and the things she did traveling around the province with people like Marcel Van Heck, with people like Jackie Clayton, these are all volunteers. There is only one paid staff member, folks. We used to be a big ship, we're now a rowboat, and we better all grab an oar and start pulling together. You know, our volunteer board of directors has done outstanding work. Now, I'm like everybody else. I don't necessarily agree with every single decision they've made, but the last thing I would do is call them out in public and second guess and question those decisions. That's not being a family. That's not solidarity, and that's certainly not what a leader should do. It's certainly not what caucus members should do, and personally, I feel embarrassed for my caucus colleagues who have chosen to take this route. It's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. In an organization like us, if you have differences, you deal with them, but you don't air your dirty laundry in public. And you don't air your disagreements in public. It is the wrong way to approach things. Now, if you ask the members of the board of directors, I think they will tell you that I've been to a number of directors meetings, but more importantly, I have worked with the directors throughout the province. I've worked very hard to build those relationships. And I support our board of directors because they are working in the best interest of the Progressive Conservative Party. Do I agree with every one of their decisions? No, I don't. No, I don't. That never happens. But I will tell you that they are a voluntary board. They work extremely hard, and they have the best interest of the future of our party and our province at heart.
Thank you. Jason Kenny, and I will repeat the question. How do you feel the volunteer PCAA Board of Directors has done since May 5th, 2015, and how do you see the Board of Directors working together with the leader and caucus if you are leader?
So first of all, I want to echo Richard's sentiment and a word of commendation for the volunteer board led by, at the time by Terry Beaupre, for keeping things on track after the disaster of the May 2015 election result. People who step up and commit hundreds of volunteer hours, like our current President Catherine O'Neill, deserve our appreciation. At the same time, I think that the current board has made some unfortunate decisions that have diminished rather than increased grassroots input in this leadership election. They ended up taking a third of the positions that were supposed to be available for open election to all members and have reserved them for people who are on boards. We respect their commitment too. But the last time we had an delegated leadership election, Don Geddes in 1985, every member had an equal vote. And I happen to believe in that principle of equality of members and maximizing, especially with what we've been through as a party, we should be inviting more people in, focusing on the grassroots. That's what Peter Lougheed's vision of this party was. He said that we'd still be meeting in the church basement. We never would have been government, he said, if we limited involvement to those who had a title or had been involved in the party. So this must be a party that, and so I disagree with that decision of the board to limit a third of the positions at the leadership convention to folks who have a title. And I also disagree with their decision to shut down the opportunity for 18 potential campus clubs to send more youth to the convention. So I think these are unfortunate mistakes that they've made, but I still support and recognize the authority of the board, and I trust that they are small d Democrats who will respect the decision of the members of this party as expressed at the March 18th Leadership Convention. If I have the honor of being chosen leader, I look forward to working constructively with the board to renew the Alberta advantage and get our province back on track.
Richard goes first, Byron. Richard goes first on rebuttal.
No, I haven't spoken yet.
Oh!
Oh, no.
I think I have. Yeah, okay, Byron, I'm sorry.
This is an issue of some sensitivity for me, because as a member of this party for 25 years, I've just been a volunteer. And as a volunteer in this party, I'm not aware of anyone as a volunteer, because you don't get paid as a volunteer, that does this for any illicit reasons. We talked about the people that kept this party going. Catherine O'Neill, who's not here tonight as our current party president, is doing. She's got to be scratching her head as to why she got into this, but she's putting yeoman service in and taking a lot of abuse for it. And I don't accept abusing volunteers in this fashion. I think what we've seen in the last number of weeks, people attacking our board, is coming from a place of people that are in this potentially for the money and are beating up the volunteers. But the reason I don't like it is because I'm a volunteer. I just went out a week or two ago as the head for Shriners Hospitals for Children in Southern Alberta. That's not a paid position and something I did because I care for it. I'm running in this election for the leadership position that comes with no salary. This is a volunteer position at the moment. I'm very sensitive, and I coach for my kids' teams, and I can tell you that we have enough trouble doing that in Calgary, that you actually, if you don't volunteer in your kids' sports leagues, you have to pay an extra $100 a year. That's a way we have to incentivize volunteers. So you do not beat on your volunteers just because you disagree with them. That's unacceptable to me. Everybody's here in this room, everybody's a volunteer on the board because they believe in the Progressive Conservative Party, and they want to believe in they want to stop the NDP from having a second term. That's why we do it, and for goodness sakes, let's not beat on our volunteers. Let's respect them and acknowledge these people are under a tremendous amount of pressure right now, putting in countless hours. They deserve our respect, and that's how I'll work with them after March 18th.
Thank you, Byron. I do apologize. And rebuttal, Richard, would you like to rebut?
Well, first of all, Helen, I'd just like to say that if I'm fortunate enough to be elected party leader, I will look forward to working with our volunteer board and to the excellent work that they do. But I think it is also very important that we respect the authority of the board, and as Jason said, respect that authority. So I guess I do have a question for Jason, which he'll have a chance to answer. Will he respect the board's authority, or will he proceed with his timeline with regard to the 5-point plan, which would mean the leader overruling the board?
I respect the authority of the board, but I respect the authority of the grassroots first and foremost. And that's what this campaign is. This campaign, you just heard it right now. Richard would rather that 23 people on a board of 45 decide our future. I respect them. I thank them for their service. I think every single member of this party should decide our future, and that's why I want to give you the ultimate decision in a referendum, so the decision isn't made in a closed room by a small number of people, but by tens of thousands of Alberta Progressive Conservatives.
And I'm so sensitive about volunteers. I want to remind everybody that those volunteers on that board were elected by the members of this party last May. Let's not pretend they're elite, because if you think the board members in our constituencies that have kept them bloody well afloat since May 5th, 2015 aren't important, then why the hell are we giving our current and past MLAs, no offense, automatic delegate positions? Either you do or you don't. We got to respect our volunteers, because the reason we're all here today, as we heard, is because of volunteers. Well sensitive on that.
Thank you. And if you have questions, write them down. Mike and Mike are roaming around and they will pick them up. Okay, so now we move on to question 4. We'll begin with Jason. What are your thoughts on the current model of the federal equalization payments? What are your thoughts on the current model of the federal equalization payments?
My thought is that it's not working for Alberta. It is a scandal that this province, that is in one of the deepest recessions in its history, is the biggest net contributor to equalization. The second biggest contributor is Saskatchewan, which is struggling. We are right now, through the formula, sending effectively funds from areas in recession to areas in periods of growth. And so we need an Alberta government that will stand up vigorously for this province, like Peter Lougheed did, to when Pierre Trudeau was undermining our energy industry in the 1970s and 80s. We need to stand up when the next negotiation happens and insist that Alberta be protected from this kind of outward wealth transfer when we're in a trough ourselves in this province. And you know, Richard has come up with some interesting ideas about that today that I think are commendable and worth studying. The Wildrose Party has as well. I can tell you that, unfortunately, we don't have the choice about whether equalization exists. It's in the Constitution. And right now, they take the money out of the revenues that they collect from us and process through the Canada Revenue Agency. So perhaps we should look at an Alberta Revenue Agency. Perhaps we should look at collecting the funds here ourselves. And most importantly, creating an alliance with like-minded provinces. Let me just say, by the way, I'm glad that we have a premier standing up for Alberta against Ottawa. Thank you, Brad Wall.
Yeah.
We need to be there, shoulder to shoulder with Brad Wall, in demanding a recalculation of the formula that recognizes that provinces that are in recession should not be paying into this. Over $200 billion collected since 1965, and we are generous Albertans. We don't mind sharing some of our wealth with parts of the country when they are struggling, but we're struggling right now, and actually, it's time to stand up for this province at a time of recession.
Byron, and I will repeat the question. What are your thoughts on the current model of the federal equalization payments?
Thank you, I got it. Equalization payment is an interesting constitutionally protected issue. I hope, Jason, because I know a little better now than I did a few months ago, wasn't just calling for a firewall, because I think we're past that in Alberta. But the concept of equalization payment, of course, is to make the access to services equal across the country, particularly to benefit the core provinces. That's great in theory. It's great when it was, unfortunately, Atlantic Canada that was doing it. As Jason said, we're generous as Albertans on this topic. We're willing to do that. The problem is twofold with how we're going to deal with that. And notwithstanding the framework or the idea is constitutional, we can be bold and strong in dealing with the government on this point. The problem is twofold. Right now, first of all, the governments of Ontario and Quebec are so badly run that the entire formula has fallen on its head that they are net takers under equalization. They are have-not provinces. And I will tell you that what the equalization payment, and with 2 minutes we can't get into the really boring dynamics of what that means, the equalization payments, as they are, paying back to provinces that have bad government, are a disincentive on the great government that we've had for 44 years under the PC Party of Alberta. Doesn't make a lot of sense to disincentive. So that's something that we can change. And then lastly, it's not, as Jason said, it's not reflective in a timely fashion as to how you're judged to be a have or have-not province. It's not quite that simple. It's how much the average income and how much revenue a government can get off their people. But it's not reflective. So when we have a bad year like 2016, we are still, in Alberta, we are still paying in to equalization payments as if it was several years ago when everything was going swimmingly. That's not good enough, and that's something that without messing with our constitution, we can change, so that when Alberta is going through tough times, we don't have to pay in as if it was our best times. We can make it more reflective of the current time.
Well, certainly nothing gets coffee shop talk going faster than to start talking about equalization and transfer payments. But I will tell you that it is a program that has been in place now for 60 years, and Alberta over that period of time has received a grand total of $92 million. That all ended in 1965. Over that same period of time, Quebec received $198 billion, including $10 billion this year. And that $10 billion is interesting because you know how big our deficit is? $10.9 billion. You know what Quebec's got? A balanced budget. Guess how their budget gets balanced? Through $20 billion worth of equalization and transfer payments that flow to the province of Quebec. Now, it's interesting that Jason just called equalization a scandal. You know, the thing about equalization, though, is although it is constitutional, it is adjusted every 5 years. The formulas are adjusted. What is included and what is excluded is adjusted. Did you know that Quebec's hydro and Manitoba's hydro is not included in the calculation formula? Did you know that Newfoundland and Nova Scotia have negotiated a special exemption for their offshore oil revenues? Those are all things that happen within these adjustments. Now, the equalization formula was adjusted in 2009. Well, actually, it wasn't adjusted in 2009. It was largely left the same. In 2014, it was up for adjustment again. It was largely left the same. Who was in government then? The Federal Conservative Party. Who was in cabinet? Mr. Kenney. Mr. Kenney, it is a federal program. If you wanted to change it, you should have changed it when you were in Ottawa and could have changed it. But Mr. Kenney, you did not. And Alberta continues to pay into this program that is fundamentally unfair to us, especially at times like these when we are struggling. So I propose this morning a series of changes that would improve and make equalization more fair, and I will use my 30 seconds of rebuttal to tell you more.
Thank you. I hope that was a promise, not a threat. Jason, would you like to begin the rebuttal?
Thank you very much, Richard. First of all, it is negotiated. It's a federal, provincial program that is negotiated, and you need some buy-in from the provinces. We don't want a federal government that dictates. We want it to listen to the provinces. Secondly, you're a bit of a revisionist in the history there, because you may recall that we fundamentally did change. Stephen Harper's government fundamentally did change the equalization formula in 2009. Such that Danny Williams took the Canadian flag down off the provincial legislature because we stopped giving them extra payments at a time of growth in Newfoundland. And that's why we haven't elected a conservative Newfoundland for 8 years.
Well, I was going to talk about Danny Williams as an example of what a province can do to tilt the equalizations in their favor, because actually what Danny Williams did when he started producing income in Newfoundland, managed to make a deal with the Harper government ultimately to tilt it in their favor so that Newfoundland was still a have-not province and a net receiver of equalization payments. So we can make an impact from a provincial. That was an orange one. There we go.
I'll give you a couple extra.
At least you're not colorblind. But that's all we can do it from a provincial level in bilateral negotiations with the feds.
Thank you. Richard.
It's not enough to just grouse and complain about equalization. So this morning I came up with a concrete proposal of 3 things that we could do to improve our situation with equalization even before it gets renegotiated. First, to create an Alberta Revenue Agency so that our tax dollars are kept and spent here without sending them first to Ottawa. Second, to create an Alberta Investment Trust so that our natural resource revenues could be invested in this trust and therefore be shielded from the calculation and make Alberta less of a payer to equalization. Finally, to create the Alberta Clean Energy Corporation, which would refine and upgrade our natural resources all here in the province of Alberta to bring jobs, to bring wealth, and to bring value added.
Okay, question 5, and we'll begin with Byron. The question is, do you believe in climate change? And if not the carbon tax, then what major environmental policy would you propose? You want me to repeat it?
Thank you. That's fine. I get the gist. Let me tell you that like 97% of scientists, I agree on the following. That the climate of the world is changing, that humans have made an impact on our climate, and that we should, generally speaking, do something to reduce emissions. I believe in that. The problem that I do have when we talk about this extremely emotional, hotbed issue is when I heard our environment minister recently, provincial environment minister, talking, and she took the 97% of agreement that I just talked about, and I believe we should act to reduce emissions as good stewards of this beautiful earth that we've all inhabited. I love the land in Alberta, and we got to protect it. But she takes that and says, well, everybody agrees, and then she talks about all sorts of ludicrous ideas that are close to me and hurt me, like the 2013 flood in Calgary was due to climate change, or the Fort Mac fire 2016 was due to climate change. Not true, ridiculous, and offensive, and not helpful. But as far as reducing emissions, I'm in the NDP government right now says that we should lose jobs, close down industry, take wealth out of our economy, and that's how we should really take us all back to the Stone Ages, and we're going to solve the environment problems that way. I think that's not how we do it as Albertans. What we can do is make jobs, create industry, because we happen to have thanks to 44 years of PC government, everybody, we have one of the most educated populations in the world. And we have opportunities all over this province. Every town and city that we go to, we find new industries creating green electricity, green energy, and making technology that actually reduces carbon emissions. That grows the economy, excuse me, got a little excited, but that grows the economy. It doesn't reduce the economy in solving a major problem of our time. Thank you, Mike.
Richard Starkey.
So the microphone may be the main player in this evening. So, well, climate change is real. It is, and man-made influence is significant. In fact, it may very well be the #1 contributor to climate change, and we have a role to play. Now, some people will say, well, our contribution is only 1.6%, so even if we got rid of all of our emissions, it wouldn't make a big deal worldwide. You know, that's true, but it does not alleviate our responsibility from doing our part. But my argument is that Canada, and Alberta specifically, can do way more to influence overall greenhouse gas emissions by using technology in a smart way. For example, we have these 19 coal plants that we're shutting down. Well, while we're shutting down 19 coal plants, 2,400 new coal plants are being built worldwide. Why are we shutting these 19 plants down? Why don't we use them as beta test laboratories, develop technologies, and then sell that technology to those other 2,400? If we can reduce the emissions by 5% at those plants, if we can reduce the emissions, what a greater impact that will have on greenhouse gas emissions. You know, we all have a role to play, but Alberta has always recognized this, and this is one of the things that, you know, we're modest. We don't recognize, or at least we don't tell the world about it. Alberta was the first jurisdiction in North America to put a price on carbon. In 2007, we started putting a price on carbon, but not economy-wide, not something that would hurt seniors and ag societies and charitable institutions. It was on large emitters. And the additional amounts that they made under the specified gas emissions regulation went into a fund to fund new innovations, to develop new technologies, to reduce greenhouse gases. That is the strategy for making an overall greater impact on greenhouse gas emissions, because that is an issue that is vitally important to all Albertans, but especially to young Albertans, because this is something they're extremely concerned about. Without it, we will not do well, not just electorally, but anywhere else.
Thank you. Jason Kane.
I agree with Richard and Byron, and I'm glad that they now oppose the carbon tax. They've said in the past that they supported a revenue-neutral carbon tax. I think a carbon tax is all economic pain and no environmental gain. That's why the Australian Liberals just repealed their socialist-imposed carbon tax. It's why the French socialists have just done a 180 on their carbon tax. It's why the greenest voters in the United States and Washington just repudiated a carbon tax in a referendum. Now, did you know one of our NDP ministers fibbed about that? The environment minister said that Washington State was about to impose a carbon tax. No, minister. Actually, they had a referendum, and they voted against it. And we Albertans would like the right to do the same thing, wouldn't we? So, this is a tax. Yes, climate change is real. Where we are right now tonight was under thousands of feet of ice not long ago. And so climate change is real, and human activity is part of it. So we do need to be prudent, as Byron said, in seeking to reduce greenhouse and carbon emissions. And I agree with both of my colleagues that investing in technology is the best way to do it. The previous government's levy on major emitters made a lot of sense. Brad Wall is focusing on the same kind of marketable and exportable technology. Not only is the rest of the world building over 2,300 coal-fired plants, many of them are dirty brown coal old tech plants. And the NDP is about to spend billions to shut down our 5 or 6 most modern, environmentally efficient and cleanest coal plants. So technology is the answer. As a country that only generates 1.6% of global greenhouse gas emissions, Alberta 0.4%, the oil sands 0.2%, we could shut down our entire economy and make no difference. So how do we make a difference? By putting our shoulder to the wheel with research and development that we can share with the rest of the world.
Thank you, David.
Hopefully we get a chance, someone asks a question about the carbon tax, because we have to address the fact that the Prime Minister is going to impose one on us. And closing our eyes and sticking our fingers in our ears and hoping that goes away isn't going to make it happen. But what I want to talk about this issue is, as we all know, we can do a better job and make it bragging about how good and how clean this province is and what a good job we do. So when the actors and actresses fly in and look at one of the 4 open pit mines in Fort McMurray, talk about their skin crawling, ignoring the fact that the oil sands are the size of Florida and there's 4 bloody open pit mines, we can be honest and honorable and talk about the great job we do at the SAGDs.
Well, I want to make it clear, and I've said it very clearly, I would repeal the NDP's carbon tax once elected. And if there was a federal carbon tax, I would not let it be an Ottawa carbon tax. It would have to be one that we would design ourselves in Alberta, and that would only be against our own will, but that may well be the situation they have in Saskatchewan as well. But let me tell you one other thing. 1.6% is true. But, you know, if you're driving down the highway and you've got a gum wrapper and the guy in front of you with a pickup truck with an open box and no tonneau covers spilling garbage on the road, why don't you just invent a tonneau cover to tailgate for him?
Jason Kane.
So the federal carbon tax, if Alberta, so let me say, if I were the Premier of Alberta, Bill number 1 would be the Carbon Tax Repeal Act. Then if Justin Trudeau comes at us and tries to impose his carbon tax, then I would do what Brad Wall is doing. I would do what Peter Lougheed would have done, and I would sue the federal government for an intrusion in provincial jurisdiction. We need a government that once again stands up for Alberta.
Okay, we're coming to our sixth and final question of this segment. We have enough audience questions, so we won't be taking any more. So this one will be, our beginning speaker will be Richard Starkey. And here is the question. Alberta faces significant revenue issues. We are the only province that doesn't use a provincial sales tax. If not a PST, then what? Richard Starkey. You need the question repeated, Richard?
No, that's good, Helen, I remember it. Well, other than I reject the premise that we have a significant revenue issue in Alberta, we have a significant spending issue. And in business, and I was in business for over 30 years, the first thing we did when we had a reduction in our revenues, and trust me, I went through BSE in 2003 and we had a considerable reduction. The first thing we did is looked at every single line item and looked for places that we could reduce our expenses without affecting our quality of service to our customers. And in government, that is exactly the same thing you should be doing. Because taxpayers are the people that consume our public services, whether it be health or education or social services. And we have to provide those services in such a way that they provide the kind of excellence and kind of value that Albertans have come to expect. Now that also means that we have to go through and decide, should Alberta be in certain lines of business? For example, we shouldn't be in the business of running laundries and spending an extra $200 million in our health department when that used to be contracted out to private industry. We shouldn't be in the business of owning a diagnostic health lab that costs taxpayers an extra $50 million when that organization has been running for the last 40 years as a private business. Now I will tell you that I think both of those decisions were driven by an ideological basis in order to create jobs for unionized government employees. Right. So that's not the way we do things. We can find ways to make savings. And you know, one of the examples was liquor stores in Alberta. Remember they used to be run by the government? In Lloydminster, there's still a liquor store on the Saskatchewan side, nobody goes there. The prices are high, the selection's lousy, and they're hardly open. The liquor stores on the Alberta side, all 26 of them, they do a booming business. Partly because a lot of folks from Saskatoon drive up and buy their booze in Lloydminster. And that's a good thing. That was something that used to be a cost to the people of Alberta. Now it's a profit center and a new business.
Do we have a question reread, Jason?
I think I'm good, thank you. So I was proud as the president of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation to work with Ralph Klein's PC government and encourage them successfully to adopt the Alberta Taxpayer Protection Act, which requires a referendum before any government can impose a sales tax on Albertans. In retrospect, I just wish we had also added the word carbon. We missed that one. You know, friends, we, as Jim Dinning used to say back 25 years ago, we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. The Fraser Institute came out with a big study yesterday that proved this. They've shown that in the past 15 years, spending for the Alberta government has grown faster than our economy, than our population, or than inflation, or faster, of course, than revenues. And if spending had simply grown along with our economy and population, we would have a balanced budget today. If we were spending the same amount per person as the government, the Liberal government of British Columbia, that delivers basically the same bundle of services at roughly the same quality, we would have a balanced budget. There's an 11, can you believe, they have 1 million more people in BC, but we spend $3 billion more than they do. So when you give politicians more money, it means they don't have to make the difficult decisions about reducing spending. Now, I've been minister of two huge federal departments where we reduced 10% of operating expenditures in those two departments as part of a difficult but ultimately successful effort to balance the federal budget, and hardly anybody noticed the consequences of those reductions I made. So we know, we've had this experience. Alberta has done it before, our federal government has done it. It requires determination, a little bit of political courage and a whole lot of common sense. But let's not soak taxpayers, especially when we already have a government that's driving away investment and hard workers and killing jobs through new taxes. So no, I say we don't even think, we think about reducing taxes to bring more workers and investors to Alberta.
No, I get it, and definitely you're not going to hear any of the three of us disagree on a point of whether there's a need to increase the revenue, which is what the question presupposed. It's not the case that we need to increase the revenue. I'm a small business owner in Calgary, and I can tell you that in 2016 and now 2017, we are, as small business owners, not just in Calgary, across the province, we're getting it from all sides. The last thing you can do to me and my family and my business is ask me to dig deeper, because I'll tell you it's hell in Calgary right now. We're digging too deep already. So what we can do is we can address the spending side of the ledger. And just as an example, I'll give you 3 quick examples of how crazy, and Jason talks about giving politicians money. Well, I'm a business owner. You give me some money, I'm not going to spend it. I'm going to save it for rainy days. But 3 examples of where this all goes wrong. And this is on our party, in our government. Between 2000 and 2010, the expenditures of this province doubled. 10 short years. I'm betting there's nobody here whose family expenses, good for you if they did, but I doubt that your family expenses doubled in 10 short years. They doubled, as to Jason's point, because we had good years. We had good revenue. We had high oil prices. But you know what they used to say in the 80s, what we did with our money? We did with our money then now. And what do we have to show for it? Right? We spend more per capita on health in Alberta than any other province. We deliver about moderately. In my business, that would mean I wouldn't have been in business as long as I have. That would be disastrous. We spend in health approximately 1/3 more than the national average, but we deliver on the national average. We spend more on education than on any province in this country, and we have nothing to show for it. That's the problem, and that's how we can give ourselves in line. We have nothing to show for it. By the way, you know that in Grande Prairie because we got schools and hospitals around here that aren't delivered on time and are delayed. You think with spending all that money, we can at least get a damn regional hospital ready on time and not with reduced number of rooms in the hospital. Same with the schools.
Thank you
That's
very
how we
much,
do
Byron. Mr. Starkey.
Well, I just want to be very equivocal. I do not favor a PSD. I live in Lloydminster. I see that not having a PSD gives us a significant advantage over the province of Saskatchewan. That advantage was in place for a long time until about 2 years ago, and I see businesses moving now from the Alberta to the Saskatchewan side of Lloydminster, believe it or not. And so, you know, that is an advantage we have to try to maintain, but also we have to bring down our corporate taxes that were increased by 20% by this government, and the maximum marginal rate of personal income tax, which were increased
Thank
by
you very
50%.
much, Richard. Jason Kenny.
When the NDP came to office, Alberta had some of the lowest taxes in North America, and now for personal marginal income tax rates, we have some of the highest taxes in North America. This is one of the reasons that the recession has been prolonged and worse than it needs to be. Higher taxes discourage work, saving, and investing. You create wealth and balanced budgets. You produce more government revenues by getting more people to work, save, and invest. That's one of the reasons I helped to start the Canadian Taxpayers Federation 25 years ago, and we need that kind of taxpayer logic back in government.
We're all on the same side. Rather than repeating it ad nauseum, I want to discuss making Alberta the land of opportunity. Reducing taxes and making this the place that's the cheapest place to live with the highest standard of living is what's important to all of us. www.byronforalberta.ca has the details. Go look at them. You'll love what you see.
Thank you. First of all, and I hope now I don't speak too soon, but I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause. It's amazing that crowd of this size for over an hour and a half, and I haven't heard one disruptive cell phone ring. I missed it, okay. So now you're going to have a bit of change. I'll turn it over to, as I said, Mike Square, Mike O'Connor, and Mike Moment They are going to ask the candidates the questions that you, the audience, submitted.
Thank you so much. I'll start with the first one. This one addressed to Jason Kenney from Peter. What direction would you take Alberta if you become the new leader?
In the direction of unity, in the direction of a fresh start and a new beginning, in the direction of ensuring the defeat of the socialist government in 2019. You know, Brad Wall came to Calgary in November, told us the story about how almost 6 decades of almost uninterrupted socialist government had created economic and demographic stagnation in that province. He said, but finally, we free enterprisers got our act together. We buried the hatchet, created the Saskatchewan Party, have defeated the NDP 3 times, most recently with 65% of the vote. He saw me in the audience and said, my friend Jason Kenney is here. He has a plan to do something exactly like that in Alberta. Either you Albertans will follow a unity plan like that, or maybe, he said, you're at the beginning of your 6-decade-long experiment with socialism. So I think we need to reconstitute the great coalition that Peter Lougheed and Ralph Klein led before it fell apart. We need to follow the successful example of the Saskatchewan Party and Brad Wall, who has endorsed the plan that I'm proposing. We need to follow the successful example of the Federal Conservative Party and Stephen Harper's leadership, who endorsed the plan that I'm proposing. That, as have half of the Progressive Conservative caucus in the legislature, over 6 dozen former Progressive Conservative MLAs, because none of those people are willing to put the future of this party and this province at risk to a vote split that could jeopardize the future of our province. So we need to get the Alberta advantage back. We need to attract investment, and as job number 1 of a new government, we need to restore that investor confidence, and we need a government that is once again on the side of taxpayers. But we'll only do that if we focus on what unites us and not what divides us.
I remind all of you, as well as the rules as we outlined at the beginning of the session, only one candidate will answer each audience question, and there will be no rebuttal. So, turn it back now to Mike and Mike.
Okay, this question is for Byron. How do you plan to increase grassroots input into the party? I can't speak English.
Whoever sent me this question looked at my website, which is www.byronalberta.ca. Because I'm all about the grassroots involvement in this party. It's where we lost our way, as I said earlier, and is on my website. We lost our way because we fell out of touch with our grassroots. Being a member of this party, and I'm guessing many of you have been members even longer than my 25 years, became in the last years of the PC government without value. We heard that after the election when we actually started talking to our members and saying, what the heck went wrong? And people said, you know, you didn't ask me for anything other than to raise money for you between elections and to come out and door knock and lick some stamps and do some mailings at election time. You didn't ask me for input on the direction of this party. I'm big on that, and I tell you, and I tell this story everywhere I go, that I went to a lot of policy conventions as an elected delegate for different ridings that I lived in over the years, all in the same area of Calgary and beyond. And we went, we paid our own money to be at these policy conventions. We gave our own time, we drove there, we worked hard, we debated on these policies, and as soon as we walked out the door, you could metaphorically hear our policies being crumpled up and thrown in the garbage. That's not connecting with grassroots. So what I will do after this election, if elected, is get to every town, to every person, to every constituency. I happen to like watching rodeo a lot. Get into every rodeo, go in every golf tournament I can, and actually talk, because we can pretend and talk about what the great legacy of Peter Lougheed was, but what that man did is he talked regularly with the constituency associations in this province, and he connected very well with the people at the level, and we never got called arrogant, we never got called out of touch, and we never lost touch with Albertans as we did leading into 2015. Thank you.
For Mr. Starkey, how do you work to ensure the preservation of parental rights, especially because the NDP is actively eroding those rights?
Well, it's a great question. It's one of those situations where I was at a very memorable day in the legislature where I was sitting next to our interim leader, Rick McIver, and he got himself kicked out because the two of us were actively defending parental choice in education. Now, as many of you may or may not know, my wife and I homeschooled both of our sons, K to 12. We made that choice. My wife is a veterinarian just like I am, but she stayed home with our sons to teach them. Now, that was a sacrifice for our family, but it was well worth it, and it was available in Alberta. I have stood up on 4 separate occasions in the legislature defending parental choice and specifically defending the choice of homeschooling. In one of my first sessions, Brian Mason stood up and called homeschoolers a fringe group. Shame. I stood up and I defended homeschooling as a choice because, you know, that choice, it's only in Alberta and British Columbia that it's funded. It's only available, it's not even available, it's not even legal in Germany and Sweden. You know, so one of the strengths of our educational system is the fact that parents have choice. They can choose independent, charter, private, Catholic, public, homes education. They've got all of these options. And it's what makes Alberta education so great. And yes, we fought back against the NDP when they took what was a very basic motion to affirm the rights of parents to choose their children's education. And when Minister Egan revoked the license of Wisdom Homeschooling, who was up asking them the question the next day in the legislature about why he did that and why he didn't look for alternatives and throwing all those families into turmoil? I was. I was there. I was on the floor, and I've always defended parental choice in education.
This is for Jason Kenny. Policing costs in the province are unfairly distributed. While county residents pay nothing, city residents pay a whopping $250 each. Can you tell me your plan to adjust to equalize these costs?
Where the hell did that question come?
It sounds like somebody, this is a controversial issue. I will tell you that we obviously need fair distribution of provincial support for all core services, including policing and public safety. We need fair contracts from the RCMP for those municipalities that use the federal police force and from the Department of the Solicitor General, the provincial government, that recognizes, I think, unique and higher costs for policing rural areas, but also fair costs for the city. So I can't tell you the precise formulae, but I want to amplify what Richard said earlier. I am concerned with the pending reduction of the number of seats in the legislature as a result of redistribution. We could be seeing 6 to 8 rural ridings eliminated in the NDP's redistribution of seats. That will further reduce the voice of rural Alberta and smaller communities when it comes to questions like this. So I, for one, think it's essential that we maintain a strong voice for smaller communities and cities on questions like this to ensure they get a fair share of the provincial resources on policing and other services.
For Byron, what are your plans to enhance the living conditions of Alberta seniors?
Actually, this isn't on my website. That is shameful. Maybe I'll see if I can fix there, but there's lots of room for more videos for sure. Okay, so Stephen's no longer here, so he used to talk about the fact that he and I are in the sandwich generation, where you're dealing with your children and you're dealing with your parents. So I'm from that perspective, not being a senior, being the youngest man in this race, acutely aware of some of the seniors' issues, and where this hits home, and it hit home for me in 2016 very hard, is putting seniors into housing versus leaving them in their own house where they can spend their final years. That is one of the most important things to me. It's very important to my dad had passed in 2016. Very important to my dad, I can tell you, that he got the ability and the support. He lives outside of Calgary, lived outside of Calgary. He was able to have the support to stay in the house and receive home care until his final day. That's one thing that I think is essential. By the way, it's also a good, I can say because as my dad we're talking about, that's a good cost savings for the provincial government, right? My dad's house was paid for by himself, him and my mother. Everything that was there, the food that was paid for, and that was the choice they have. That's not going to be everybody's choice. It's not every senior's choice. But that's an area that we've now seen provincial support for that I think, and I say this from a personal experience, will make and has made a tremendous difference on seniors. And it's something that I want to see, and as Premier, I would absolutely extend the benefits. And the home care my dad received was fantastic, and we're very grateful. Thank you.
This is for Richard. Youth and young Albertans are going to be the voters and a stronger force in the next election. What do you have to say to them?
Well, what I have to say to them is that get involved. What I have to say to them is you make a difference, and what I have to say to them, and this is a reality, is you're going to be living in this province in the future a lot longer than we are. So you get involved, and you can make a difference. Over here in the front row is a young lady who, in my first year in legislature, brought forward a petition, a series of postcards, and because of her efforts, she mobilized high school students all around the province, and it led to the passage of Bill 206, which banned flavored tobacco in this province, which will have a massive impact in reducing our healthcare costs going forward, and have an impact on reducing the minimum. I encouraged her to do that. Now, Diana wasn't really all that interested in politics when we met, and now she's a second-year poli-sci journalism student at MacEwan University. You know, I'm also very proud to have on my team Adam Brown. Adam Brown is the grandson of Doug Cherry, who was the MLA for for Lloydminster rather, when I came to Lloydminster. Doug Cherry allowed me to have a part in his constituency association and the work that he did. He mentored me, and now I'm paying it forward. I'm mentoring Adam, or at least I hope he's learning something from me. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how we get youth involved in the political process. While I was at the legislature last fall, I spoke to our 25 outstanding pages, and I encouraged them, get involved in public life. Public service is a little bit rough and tumble at times, but it is worth it. I was elected as a city councilor in Lloydminster when I was 25 years old. Now, some people said he's a little young. In fact, I was the youngest person ever elected to City Council of Lloydminster, but having that youth perspective was valuable. And that is what we have to do, get our young people engaged, reach out to them, and tell them that they can make a difference. And that's the key.
For Jason Kenney, while you were in federal position with the PC Party of Canada, you alienated Alberta's small businesses with the elimination of many temporary foreign workers, which hurt Alberta business. Would, if elected, you keep alienating Alberta's small businesses?
Well, I would call that a loaded question. Have a nice evening. By the bar over there. So, friends, first of all, when the first 6 years of the Harper government, the number of temporary foreign workers admitted to Canada on work permits quadrupled. And if you don't believe me, just talk to Gil McGowan at the Alberta Federation of Labour, who set his hair on fire over that. We did that in part to facilitate, to help businesses that were coping with the skilled and labour shortages during that period. But following that period, we started to see, as the economy slowed, a growing number of abuses, unfortunately being reported by, admittedly, a minority of employers, and some distortions in the labour market that we found very troubling. We saw, for example, in the fast food business, we saw that wages were almost flat in that industry, even though they were going up by 3% a year overall in the economy, because there were so many temporary workers coming from abroad. And we didn't want to end up with a situation where we would distort the labor market so that the jobs didn't pay enough to attract young Canadians. So we brought in some reforms to make the program a last and limited resort. It's still there. There are still, I think, a couple of 100,000 temporary foreign workers in Alberta, but the employers have to dig deep to hire Albertans first. And thank goodness we did. Because imagine if today, in the midst of this recession with 200,000 unemployed Albertans with 20% youth unemployment, imagine if those jobs were all being filled by people coming in from abroad, and that wouldn't be right. So It should be there as a last resort, as a limited resort, but we must require that employers dig deep with young Canadians, Aboriginal Canadians, disabled Canadians, elderly Canadians who want to work, all of those groups that are underrepresented in the labor force. They should come first when it comes to available jobs in our economy.
This question is for Byron. How do you plan to engage and encourage the next generation of youth? There will be over 300 delegate youth coming in March. How do you plan to earn their support?
Well, importantly, as I say that I've been a member of this party for 25 years, you can judge by my overall youth standing before you that I was a youth when I first got involved at the University of Calgary, with a lot of people that I got involved with at the time that, if you're aware of Calgary politics right now, I was in the campus clubs with, not always on the same page, with Mayor Nenshi and Danielle Smith and Ezra Levant and Rob Anders, and remain friends with all of them, some more than others today. Youth engagement hasn't changed in the 25 years that I've been a member of this party. So first thing I do is I tell everybody that I meet who's and Sonia Kant here, our PCY presidents here, I always remind them about my own involvement in the PC party. But speaking for myself, I got involved and stayed involved, obviously, for 25 years because this party has been and continues to be very focused on youth involvement and youth engagement. And I point to the example that you just used. The 265 movement in this leadership convention is that at least 265 of the delegates have to be youth, as defined as 25 and under. That's how you engage youth, because then they have a value to being there. They're not just doing what I said earlier. I wouldn't have stayed in this party for 25 years if all anyone said to me is, Byron, can you come to the fundraiser between elections, and can you show up and lick some envelopes? I've done lots of that, but if that was all there was to do, I can tell you I wouldn't have been engaged. And as a youth, it's exciting to get to go to these events. And I think the youngest youth in this room is my EA Jared, who's barely 18. He will be engaged 25 years from now, I assure you, because I know how to treat youth and keep them engaged and bring them to the events. It's an important part of this party.
Mr. Starkey, describe the process by which the PC and Wildrose can work together and not split votes.
Well, let me be clear on a few things. There is a tremendous amount of concern, and I understand the concern surrounding a second NDP term. Wayne Drysdale and I are in the legislature every day, and we see these folks at work, sort of. And, you know, I will tell you that what we have right now, indeed, is something that we cannot let go past the single term. This government was not really prepared to govern. They aren't really in a position where they can govern. They don't necessarily have the skills or the experience to govern well. And I think we're seeing some of the consequences of that. So I will tell you that there is nobody in this room that is motivated more to see them limited to a single term than myself or Wayne Drysdale or some of the other members of the opposition in the legislature. Now, going around the province, I recognize that there's a tremendous concern about vote splitting, which was a factor in some of the ridings in the last election. Now, one of the things, though, that you can't fight necessarily the next election based on what happened in the last election, because the electoral landscape will change. We know that the boundaries will change. But despite that, I felt we had to address the issue. And so, just yesterday, I announced a plan whereby we would work together with the Wildrose. And we would, and why did I do this? Is because our members were telling me, they were begging me and saying, Richard, consider something. We do want to preserve the Progressive Conservative Party. We like what you're saying about our values and our principles. We want to preserve the party. We don't want to do a merger. But what we want to do is in those ridings where a vote split could occur, where it could result in an NDP, let's work together because, quite frankly, at the constituency level, we already are. So let's look at that. That's why I made my proposal. I've had a lot of people come out and say, yes, that is exactly what we've been waiting for because it preserves our party, our values, and our principles while ensuring not a second NDP term.
Let's give a big round of applause to Mike and Mike for the I guess I want to see how fast the adrenaline can pump in the candidates, or how many split-second decisions they can make. They've each been given these cards. Mike, hold it up so everybody can see. On one side it says no, on one side it says yes. I will assure the candidates that at the end of these questions, you will be allowed to regain your dignity by having 2-minute closing remarks. So,
I think I should point out. Wait a minute. These questions were actually determined by a psychologist to truly describe your character.
some of these questions I don't know that even have character, but all right. So, are you ready, candidates?
Where's the neither?
Bring it on.
Okay, I will ask each question very quickly in succession. Did you go camping last summer? Would you support a provincial sales tax? Do you like cake? Do you own a kite?
A which?
Kite.
Like a kid.
Do you support the carbon tax?
No.
Have you ever wanted to be a teacher? These are my questions. Don't look at me like that. Have you ever tried to break a world record? Should we have more MLAs? Should we have fewer MLAs? Do you believe in chickens raised in the city? Do you like candy corn?
Candy corn.
Should deficits be illegal? Are dogs better than cats?
Well, I'm a pet, come on.
Do you know how to swim? Does Grande Prairie deserve a polytechnic university? Are you a hugger? Hugger. Are you scared of the dark? Should our Philip J. Curry Dinosaur Museum receive provincial funding? Do you like popping bubble wrap?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is a taco a sandwich?
A sandwich?
Do you support the legalization of marijuana?
Sure, why not?
Do you make a wish when the clock reads 11:11? Are you musically talented?
For sure.
Does cilantro taste like soap?
Cilantro.
Cilantro tastes like soap. Are you sweating right now? Are you too legit to quit? Have you ever played Truth or Dare? I want to thank each and every one. And thank whoever made up the questions, I think. And so now you will each be given 2 minutes for your closing remarks, and we will begin with Richard Starkey.
Well, thank you. I'm going to see if we can get 87 of those and take them to Edmonton, because it would sure make division a whole lot more entertaining. You know, ladies and gentlemen, you've got 3 applicants for a very important job, and on March 18th, you'll be doing the hiring. And so whenever you have applicants for a job, you need to look at skills, experience, the resumes they bring, and you need to look at what are you looking for to fill that. You know, I believe that Albertans want someone who has a mixture of business experience, of community involvement, and also political experience. I think all 3 are important to bring to government, because that is what makes good government decision making. I've been in business for 30 years. I've served 2 terms on Lloydminster City Council. I've been an MLA for 5 years, and I've been extensively involved with my community. The second area that I think that people are really going to be looking for in our next leader is someone who is an active listener and has a reputation for trust and integrity. As far as that part goes, I ask you, just ask some of my legislature colleagues or ask some of my customers back in Lloydminster. And as far as active listening, well, I can tell you, veterinarians have to be active listeners, because otherwise our patients suffer. The third area is we need a leader who can speak for all of Alberta, rural and urban. not just Edmonton and Calgary, because our urban areas are incredibly important, but let's quit the divide, other than in hockey and football, of course, between Edmonton and Calgary, between rural and urban, between north and south. Northern Alberta has some very specific challenges. And as the only rural MLA running in this race, I understand those challenges. And finally, we need someone who's in the legislature now. We need somebody who on March 20th can start asking Rachel Notley the kinds of questions that Albertans have been waiting, and to present the alternatives, because Albertans are already shopping for their next government. I'm in the legislature now. I'm ready to serve you on March 18th. Please support Richard Starkey for your next MLA and next Premier of the province of Alberta.
We have Byron Nelson.
The Progressive Conservative Party in the history of Alberta is the single greatest political party in our history. Provide us the best times, the best standard of living, the best average income, the best people, and I'll tell you, we did it thanks to some resources, while provinces surrounding us who had those same resources were have-not provinces. I don't think you turn this province and this party on its head simply because of one heck of a strange election in 2015, which was brought about ourselves. We brought about ourselves because of some flaws that we had. We don't turn away from our history and what was so great and make, unfortunately, what I see as being a mistake going forward. You don't stand around and squabble over the scraps of the provincial trough, which I think we saw from the Wild Rose Leader announcement yesterday. We've seen this movie before. We know what it's like. I know what it's like as a father, as a business owner, as a fifth-generation Albertan, as a lawyer in Calgary. I know what it's like when politicians scrap over the government trough and not worry about me and my family. I'm running for a position, as I said, that comes with no salary because I believe in this party and this province. It's been very good to my family over 5 generations, and I wanted to keep being good to my family going forward. We're sleepwalking into a second NDP government because we wish that we could redo the 2015 election. That's the fact. We are entering in a merger that federally took something like 8 or 9 years to complete, and that's okay, as I said, to talk about it. But let's not think that we're going to get Rachel Notley out by simply going through the mechanisms here. We know now that Brian Jean's not interested in a merger of equals. It's not going to happen. But what we can do is take what's great about this province and what's great about this party and what has been great for 45 years, I'm 45 years old, what has been great for this party my entire life and has made me live in one of the wealthiest, highest standard of living places in the world, where it doesn't matter where you're from, where you went to school, what your dad did, you can succeed through hard work and good efforts and taking risks, and that's what we're going to do.
The decision that is in your hands to choose the next leader of the Progressive Conservative Party could be one of the most consequential decisions in the history of our province. Let's make no mistake about this. If the Socialists get a second term, they will change Alberta forever. If they are in power for 8 or 9 years, the changes to the structure of our economy, to our education system, to our political culture will in many ways be irreversible. The risks could not be higher. And so we should not risk the future of our province on a division between two parties that are voting together in the legislature 90% of the time, who do not disagree on a single major issue, who did coexist in the same party, this party, for 4 decades successfully, who do coexist in the same party at the federal level as the result of a merger that occurred not in 8 or 9 years, but in 10 months. 10 months after Peter MacKay decided to pursue unity with Stephen Harper. They went through the negotiations, 90% of the members ratified it, a new leader was elected. We went on to win 3 national elections. We should listen to those who have done that kind of hard work. People like Stephen Harper, people like Brad Wall, and people like Marv Moore up here in Grande Prairie, who ran Ralph Klein's successful campaigns, was elected with Peter Lougheed, and has endorsed my unity plan. I am proposing this in a spirit of servant leadership and humility, not to impose a plan on members and not to limit this to a decision of a couple of dozen people or a leader or a caucus, but tens and hundreds of thousands of grassroots Albertans. Let's trust ourselves. Let's get this province united and back on track so that we can renew it as a beacon of hope for generations to come.
I'd like to thank the audience. You've been great. We finished right on time. I'd like to thank all three of the candidates. It is a source of pride that three candidates of your courage and caliber were willing to step up to the plate. So thank you very much. The media scrum will take place outside one at a time.
The what?